Hello, my bookish friends. Welcome or welcome back. I am Elizabeth. This is Reading Riley, and today I'm going to tell you about all of my most anticipated thriller and horror books that are coming out for the rest of the year in October, November, and December 2023. I have quite a few to talk to you about. Honestly, it was a little bit harder to find books. It's not a very popular time of the year to release books, but I do feel like I still got some really good gems in here that I think you're going to be interested in. I'm going to separate this down into chapters below to make it a little bit easier to navigate through this video for you. I'll also pop my other social medias over here if you want to reach out on other platforms as well. And without further ado, let's get into these books. I'm going to tell you about them in order of release date, starting with October. We'll move on to November and then December. You get the point. Starting in October 3rd is a really big release day. We've got quite a few books that are coming out on this date. The first one that I want to talk to you about, I actually have an ALC of, which is an advanced listening or advanced listeners copy, an audiobook before it's released. So I'm going to be reading this one this week probably, but I'm very intrigued. It is A Haunting on the Hill. This is by Elizabeth Hand. And this is a horror ghost story based on Shirley Jackson's The Haunting on Hill House. And it's actually set at Hill House. This is the only novel to have been authorized to return to this world, so I'm very intrigued by this. I have talked about this book before. I do have an interesting, convoluted relationship with Shirley Jackson, so I'm very excited to see how Elizabeth Hand's writing shapes this story. Anyway, so we're following Holly Sherlin, who is a playwright. She's a struggling playwright. And she and her girlfriend, Nisa, go on this weekend getaway upstate, and they come across Hill House. And she becomes just entranced by this house. She convinces her girlfriend to rent it out for a month, and that's the place where she is going to not only write this play but also have rehearsals. So she's gathering a troupe of actors to come to Hill House as well, and they're all going to be staying in this house for a month. It seems that each of these actors also have ghosts of their own. Once they settle into the house, odd things start happening. It says, strange creatures start to stalk the grounds, disturbing sounds echo throughout the halls, and time itself seems to shift. That is the thing I'm most intrigued by, time shifting. What is going on with that? This is most definitely paranormal. And it says Holly and her friends find themselves at odds with one another as well as Hill House. It seems something has been waiting in Hill House all of these years, and it no longer intends to walk alone. So what's Hill House's motivation? I want to know why this house is haunted at all, because that was never talked about. This is 336 pages, and again, that will be published on October 3rd. Next, on October 3rd, we have an anthology that sounds really great from Jordan Peele, who is the director of Get Out, Us, and Nope. He has curated this anthology of all Black writers writing short stories of Black horror, exploring not only the terrors of the supernatural, but the chilling reality of injustice that haunts our nation. I think this is going to be incredible. I cannot wait for this. A cop begins seeing huge blinking eyes where the headlights of cars should be that tell him who to pull over. Two freedom riders take a bus ride that leaves them stranded on a lonely road in Alabama, where several unsettling somethings await them. That's giving me Lovecraft, I don't know why. A young girl dives into the depths of the earth in search of the demon that killed her parents. Okay. So it looks like Jordan Peele has written the introduction, and there are so many big names in here that I am very excited to hear from. P. Jelly Clark, Tananarive Due, N.K. Jemisin, Nnedi Okorafor, Rebecca Roanhorse. It just goes on, and I'm very excited for this. This is 400 pages, short stories again, and released on October 3rd. Next on October 3rd, this one I'm actually very much anticipating. This is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead wrote In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, as well as The Last Housewife. I loved both of these. I love her writing style. It is intense, it is deep, it is explorative of human nature in the way that I like in books. This one says it's for fans of Verity and A Flicker in the Dark, which is really interesting because obviously Verity, if I hear that, I'm like intrigued already. A Flicker in the Dark though, I liked the plot of that book. That one's by Stacey Willingham. Did not like the writing style of that book, so we'll see. It says it's a twisted tale of murder, obsessive love, and the beastly urges that lie dormant within us all. If this is going to explore how people are not all good or all bad, but that, you know, we're constantly making choices that move us up and down along the spectrum that is good and evil. Everyone's somewhere in between. I love the exploration of that. So if this touches on that, I'm going to be very happy with that. I should mention also, I'm going to be reading this in November with Jessie from Reading with Jess for her book club, the Sleep When I'm Dead book club. So you will hear more about this from me in November. Yeah, so we will be going live on Jess's channel to discuss this. November 27th, that is the Monday after Thanksgiving at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendars for that. Read the book in November with us if you like. And let me tell you more of what this is about. We're following Ruth, who is a librarian in this small town in Louisiana. She's always felt like an outcast, like an outsider. And her father is a fire and brimstone preacher. There are some myths that haunt this area. It's the story of the Low Man, who is a vampiric figure said to steal into sinners' bedrooms and kill them on moonless nights. I feel like this is going to have some discussion about religion as well. And then a skull is found deep within the swamp next to these mysterious carved symbols. And then Ruth realizes that only she and Everett, an old friend with a dark past, have the power to comb the town's secret underbelly in search of true evil. An examination of the ways we come to expect love, religion, and stories to save us. I like that. Wow. This is 400 pages and again comes out on October 3rd. Again on October 3rd, we have a psychological thriller by Jennifer McMahon. I have read a couple of Jennifer McMahon's books and liked them, but have not like loved them. But typically her books, in my recollection, are more of like cozy horror. So I think she's maybe switching up her genre a little bit here. So this should be interesting. Otherwise, it's a marketing misstep by calling it a psychological thriller, but I'm hoping it actually is a psychological thriller. A woman who, after taking in her dying alcoholic mother, begins to suspect demonic possession is haunting her family. Okay, I didn't read that part before. What? Demonic? I did not know this was a possession story. Okay. Interesting. It says Allison's never been a fan of Christmas, but with it right around the corner, her husband is busily decorating their cozy Vermont home and she has no choice but to face it. And then she gets a call from her mother. Her mother is dying of cancer and only has weeks left to live. And her final wish is to spend that time with her daughter, her son-in-law, and her two granddaughters. But Allison grew up with her mother's alcoholism and violent abuse and is reluctant to unearth these traumatic memories, but her mom is dying. And so she's having this battle of, does she give mom another chance? And I guess, yes, she does. She invites her to come stay with her and she's saying, okay, maybe they can heal together. Maybe they can have this relationship that they've always wanted. But when mysterious and otherworldly things start happening upon Mavis's arrival, Allison begins to suspect that her mother is not quite who she seems. And as the holiday festivities turn into a nightmare, she must confront just how far she is willing to go to protect her family. And I really enjoy that trope as well because the person can be rational and also still doing these ridiculous things because of love. Because love will drive you to do some crazy things. Next on October 10th is Silent Key by Laurel Hightower. Recently read Crossroads by this author and really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to this full-length novel from them as well. This is following a detective with a supernatural mystery. It says it has elements of Nick Cutter's The Deep, Peter Benchley's Jaws, and Stephen King's Firestarter. So after the loss of her husband under mysterious conditions, former detective Cam Ambrose learns how little she truly knew him. So she finds out something about him after he's died, reeling with the grief of her loss and the realization that the man she loved was a stranger. She must now learn how to keep her young daughter safe from the world of supernatural she never knew existed. With the help of her best friend Demi, and reclusive neighbor Eric Morgan, she sets out to solve a decades-old mystery entangling the machinations of an obsessed killer, her husband's mistress, and a series of deadly hauntings. So I'm sure, okay, is the thing she found out about her husband that he had a mistress? Is it something more supernatural? Did he have a mistress because he is a vampire? Is the daughter a vampire? I'm sure, I've never heard anything about vampires associated with this, by the way. This is purely speculation. But anyway, yeah, that comes out October 10th, 305 pages, and it's adult horror and sounds good. Interestingly enough, I just watched Kayla's video from Books and Lala where she talks about like an alternate universe TBR, like books that she thinks are really beautiful that she just has no interest in reading, and this next book was on that list of hers, but I'm interested in reading it. And I also find the cover to be extremely beautiful. It's called Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I have not read anything by this author before, but I have heard of her other books, Milkfed and The Pisces, and I've heard good things about those. So this could be, you know, the beginning of a new relationship. You never know. And it says, in Melissa Broder's astounding new novel, a woman arrives alone at a Best Western, a darkly funny novel about grief that becomes a desert survival story. So this woman arrives at the Best Western, which I love that that is the setting. I just think that's already funny. Seeking respite from an emptiness that plagues her. So she's fled to California to escape this cloud of sorrow that she's been living in. Her father is in the ICU, and then her husband is sick, just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So she's going to this Best Western to get away. She's in California. The receptionist recommends a nearby hike, and then she's out on this trail and she encounters a towering cactus whose size and shape mean it should not exist in California. Yet the cactus is there with a gash through its side that beckons like a familiar door. She enters it. What awaits her inside this mystical succulent sets her on a journey at once desolate and rich, hilarious and poignant. Literary fiction, contemporary fantasy, magical realism. So I think that could be up my alley, but what really sold me on this was I looked through the reviews. There was one review that simply stated, existential, horny cactus western. Sold. 240 pages, and that comes out October 24th. Again, on October 24th, I have another Christmassy kind of themed thriller. This is by Lisa Unger. It's called Christmas Presents. And this has a true crime podcaster in it. This whole description sounds kind of convoluted. There's a lot going on, so I'm going to try to summarize this in a way that makes sense. But we're following Madeline Martin, and she owns a bookstore. It's called The Next Chapter Bookshop. And she has had a tragic childhood where she was the only person to survive this horrific event that killed one of her friends, and then two of her other friends disappeared and were never seen again. And then we're following her a decade later. Around Christmas time, this failed novelist turned true crime podcaster, Harley Granger, comes into her bookstore and he starts asking her questions about her past, and start trying to dig things up. And it's making her very uncomfortable because she has tried to, put this behind her. But he has a gift for seeing things that others miss. Since Evan Handy went to jail, which I assume the guy who left her for dead, 3 other young women have gone missing, and most recently a young college dropout named Lolly. 5 young women missing in the same area in a decade. Are they connected? Was Evan Handy innocent after all? Or was there someone else there that night, someone who is still satisfying his dark appetites? As Christmas approaches and a blizzard bears down, Madeline and her childhood friend Badger return to the past they both hoped was dead, to find the missing Lolly and to answer questions that have haunted them both, discovering that the truth is more terrible and much closer to home than they think. I'm interested to see how the podcast element is done in here with the audiobook, if it is kind of produced like a a podcast because that's what I love, and I want like on-page podcast, not just like this guy has a podcast. I want to see the podcast if there's going to be a podcast. Like, don't just say that to draw me in, because if you do, I'm going to be mad. So yeah, this is 224 pages, was actually quite short, and I am interested. Christmas, a mystery, holiday thriller, suspense, crime, and that's expected on October 24th. Oh, this next one I'm really excited about. This is going to be a Midnight Society book club pick for November. This is going to be our last book club pick of the year, and I don't have all the details figured out yet, but other than I want to read this book for the book club, and I want to discuss it with the book club because I'm so excited, and that is Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. This comes out on Halloween, on October 31st, and I recently read Mary, An Awakening of Terror by him and loved it. So I'm very excited to see what he has to say next. His writing style is thoughtful, empathetic, terrifying. Yeah, 3 words. I say that wraps it up. Anyway, we're following this couple, Anna and Reed, and they really need a lucky break. The birth of their last child was horrifically complicated and left Anna paralyzed. She's paralyzed and she's bitter. She has no mobility. Her relationship is struggling with Reed, and she has resentment for her new baby because she has lost her mobility. But then they catch their break. They win an affordable housing lottery in New York. This is New York horror as well, which I love. They've won an apartment in Deptford, one of Manhattan's most revered buildings, with these beautiful views of Central Park and stunning architecture. Reed has dismissed disturbing events and Anna's deep unease and paranoia as the price of living in New York. People are odd. It's New York. But he can't explain the needle-like bite marks on the baby. Okay, that's all I know. That's all I want to know. This has 304 pages and expected on Halloween. Next, we're going to move on to November. In November, my first book that I want to talk to you about, I think there's a few on the 7th of November as well as this one, and it's called Keep Your Friends Close. This is the new Lucinda Berry. I've had kind of ups and downs with her books, but I'm hoping this is going to go back to her like dark place, like Saving Noah, like The Perfect Child. We're following Kirsten McCann, and she is president of the West Hollywood Moms Club. Sounds like a load of shit. And she turns up dead in her own pool. Okay.
Guess we're not following her.
I lied. She's dead. It quickly becomes clear this wasn't an accident, and the party guests, all members of this exclusive club, are now suspects. Accusations fly, and 3 mothers find themselves at the center of the investigation: Whitney, Brooke, and Jade, who all have secrets. I mean, of course, this is going to be a domestic suspense, domestic thriller. Of course, they're going to have secrets. Oh, and they all have possible motives for their friend's murder. But as the police look closer, more secrets, betrayals, and sinister plots are revealed than the women could ever imagine. With everything at stake, deceit threatens to shatter their illusions of the perfect life. West Hollywood will never be the same. 287 pages, and this is expected on November 7th. Next on November 7th, another domestic thriller by Gillian McMillan. This is called The Manor House. And this is following a couple who win the lottery, and it changes their life forever. Most people who win the lottery, their lives get completely screwed. Like, they mismanage everything, and like it goes down the drain, and they end up worse off than they were before. And I think this is gonna have something to say about something like that. But anyway, we're following this couple, childhood sweethearts, Nicole and Tom. And they get this massive lottery win. They move into this custom-built, state-of-the-art glass barn on the stunning grounds of Longcourt Manor in Gloucestershire. Nope. Gloucester. It's spelled Gloucestershire, but I know that's not how you say it. I think it's Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire? They have fancy cars, expensive hobbies, and an exclusive lifestyle they never could have imagined. But then Tom is found dead in the swimming pool. This is what starts all the drama. This is the hook. What happened to Tom? So Nicole is devastated, and their barn, this beautiful custom built barn, apparently has all of these smart features, which never seem to work for her. I like the inclusion of that. I think the kind of smart house horror is giving me turn of the key. There is another couple that lives in the manor, as well as a middle-aged housekeeper who has the coach house. And an old friend of Tom's has shown up to help Nicole get through her grief. But big money can bring big problems and big threats. Was Tom's death a tragic accident, or was it something worse? And is her life in danger as well? So again, I'm not like crazy excited about this one, but I'm definitely interested in giving this a shot. It says it was first published May 25th, so I think it was published overseas, and then it's coming out here on November 7th. The next one on November 7th as well is called The Future by Naomi Alderman. This is by the author who wrote The Power. I gave a 3-star to The Power. I loved the idea of it, but it was too long. It needed editing, but it was adapted into one of my favorite adaptations this year, The Power, which is on Amazon Prime with Toni Collette, and it's amazing. If you haven't checked it out yet, do so. Do it and check trigger warnings. I'm excited for this. It seems like, again, this is going to be a bit of a dystopian type narrative, and the way the synopsis is set up, I'm really not sure what it's about, to be honest, other than the future and rich people. It says the future, as the richest people on the planet have discovered, is where the money is. The future is a few billionaires leading the world to destruction while safeguarding their own survival with secret lavish bunkers. The future is a private weather. That I believe, like I could see that coming. Technological prophecy and highly deniable weapons. What is a deniable weapon? I don't understand. The future is a handful of friends, the daughter of a cult leader, a non-binary hacker, an ousted Silicon Valley visionary, the concerned wife of a dangerous CEO, and an internet-famous survivalist hatching a daring plan. It could be the greatest heist ever, or the cataclysmic end of civilization. The future is what you see if you don't look behind you. The future is the only reason to do anything, the object of desire. The future is here. And this says science fiction, dystopian, LGBT, adult fantasy, science fiction. There are parts of my taste that veer into sci-fi, and especially if it's like future stuff. And this very perfectly falls into that. And I'm excited to read this. It's a little bit longer, 432 pages. And then again, that comes out on November 7th. Yet another book coming out on November 7th is a new Darcy Coates, and interestingly enough, this is a YA horror. I don't know if Darcy Coates has written YA before, but if she has, I haven't heard of them. But this one does sound really good. It's called Where He Can't Find You. Don't walk alone or the Stitcher will find you. Don't stay out late or the Stitcher will take you. Don't close your eyes or the Stitcher will remake you. So we're following Abby Ward, and she lives in this town haunted by disappearances. People vanish, and when they are found, their bodies have been dismembered and sewn back together in unnatural ways. I'm already hooked right there. Like, I'm already hooked. But is this the work of a human killer or something far darker? Knowing Darcy Coates, it's probably something far darker. I would prefer it to be human. But let's go with it. Let's just go with the flow. She and her younger sister live by a strict set of rules designed to keep them safe in this town, which is why it's such a shock when her sister Hope is taken. Desperate to get her back, Abby tells the police everything she knows, but they claim their hands are tied. With every hour precious, Abby and her friends are caught in a desperate game of cat and mouse. They have to get Hope back quickly before too much of her is cut away, and before everything they care about is swallowed up by the darkness waiting in the tunnels beneath the home they thought they knew. I mean, come on, it sounds really good. Another one that's a little bit longer, 416 pages, and that comes out on November 7th. And that's it for November. I only have things coming out on the 7th of November, apparently. So let's move on to December. Coming out on December 5th, we have The Folly by Gemma Amor. I read my first Gemma Amor this year in January, I believe. I read Full Immersion by her and really loved the depth that she went into in grief and depression, and how she kind of like personified that in a way that I love when horror authors do it. It's not like your typical horror. The last one at least wasn't. It was horror in this like kind of existential way. I want to see if that's where this one goes as well. This is called The Folly. We're following an ex-con who was wrongly convicted of his wife's murder and subsequently acquitted, and his daughter. And they move into this Folly, which is this like tower on the Cornish coastline, to escape their past. This is giving me the staircase, because she fell down a staircase and he was originally convicted, but then he was in jail for 6 years and got a retrial, and then he was acquitted. So he and his daughter go, and they go to this Folly. I've never heard this word before in my life, but apparently it's a tower of sorts. And the guy that owns it hires ex-cons to like rehabilitate them. They take care of the place. In return, they have a place to stay, they have a job. He's like, okay, I'm not gonna pass this up. I'm not gonna pass up this opportunity. Morgan always knew that her father was innocent, so she's just excited to have her dad back and have time with him, especially after losing her mom, I'm sure. But when this person shows up, they start impersonating her mother, down to like the way she talked, the clothes that she wore, like everything. And it just starts getting really weird. And Morgan starts to wonder if her dad really was innocent of this. An atmospheric blend of The Lighthouse with hints of du Maurier's Rebecca. Played out on a lonely Cornish backdrop. It's a visceral mystery and a dark examination of love, loyalty, guilt, and possession that draws on the very real horror of betrayal by those closest to us, by those we love the most. It does sound like she's going to get into this like real life horror that is represented in this other way. So I'm very intrigued by that. And that is 240 pages. Again, that comes out December 5th. Again, on December 5th, we have The Engagement Party by Darby Kane. This does say, and then there were none meets I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm immediately skeptical when anyone compares something to And Then There Were None. The only book that I've ever read that has compared it to that Agatha Christie and actually represented that while doing its own thing and still making something original and unique was Alice Feeney's Daisy Darker. The only one that successfully accomplished that, for me, in my opinion. Emily Hunt went missing from her affluent liberal arts college on graduation weekend. Her body was found floating in a river. A quiet loner, who most people on campus really didn't know, took their own life. A tenuous link, one text, bound the two dead students together was enough for law enforcement to close the case. Interesting. But they got it wrong, and now someone is determined to set it right. 12 years later, college friends gathered to celebrate an engagement over a long overdue getaway on a swanky private island in Maine, with only one way in and one way out. Sierra Prescott, invited as a guest and unconnected to past events, is the only person who soon senses that all is not what it seems. The tension in the air is ignited when they find a dead man in the trunk of a car with a note that says, "Time to tell the truth." As a torrential storm strands them together, this is the isolation aspect, secrets start to come out. To survive this deadly party, they'll need to stop the killer before they become prey. This is kind of the age-old story. Like, there are so many books with this very similar synopsis that I have enjoyed, and then some that I have not, so we will see. I've yet to read from Darby Kane, so I don't know what to expect from the writing, but I am intrigued. And this is 416 pages, and again comes out December 5th. Again on December 5th, we have The Other Mothers by Catherine Faulkner. I think thrillers and suspense with commentary about motherhood have definitely been a theme this year of 2023. And it's something that I've really loved this year. So I'm excited for this one as well, because it seems like it has similar vibes, similar themes. It says it's about murder, class, and motherhood in one of London's toniest communities. What is a Tony community? I don't know. When a young nanny dies under mysterious circumstances near new mom Tasha's home, she is certain that this could be the story to relaunch her journalism career. Meanwhile, she also needs to find a local playgroup for her son. Nearby is the gorgeous neighborhood filled with wealthy and friendly families, stunning houses, and lavish playdates. But when another young woman is found dead, it's clear that there's much more to the community than meets the eye, and the more Tosh investigates, the more she's led uncomfortably close to the mother's and her son's playgroup. Are these women really her friends? Or is there another more dangerous reason why she has been accepted into their exclusive world? Who exactly is investigating who? This is 384 pages and comes out December 5th. Again, on December 5th. This one, never heard of this author before. I was hooked by the cover. The cover looks amazing and the synopsis sounds great, so I'm really excited about this one. It's called 5 Bad Deeds by Kaz Freer. It's a gripping tale of revenge, loyalty, and the secrets hidden between the walls of the most beautiful home in town. Ellen Welsh has done something very, very bad. If only she knew what that was. Teacher, mother, wife, and all-round good citizen. Ellen is juggling non-stop commitments from raising a teen and 2 toddlers to job hunting to finally renovating her dream home, the Manor House, amidst the chaos an ominous note arrives in the mail. People have to learn that there are consequences, Ellen. And I'm going to teach you that lesson right under your nose. Why would someone send her this? Ellen has no clue. She's no angel. She's told the occasional white lie here and there. She's had an occasional sharp tongue from time to time, but nothing to incur the wrath of some stranger or to create enemies. And so she's so confused. Says she'd never intentionally hurt anyone, but intention doesn't matter to someone who blames this supposed good person for all of the bad they've experienced. And maybe they have reason to, because few of us get through life without leaving a black mark on somebody else's. Could the 5 bad deeds that come to haunt Ellen explain why things have gone so terribly wrong? As she races to discover who is set on destroying her reputation and her future, Ellen continues to receive increasingly threatening messages, each one hitting closer to everything she cherishes. This comes out on December 5th. That's 352 pages. Last but not least, on December 26th, so the day after Christmas, we have The Vacation House by Jane Shemilt. 2 women, 2 secrets, 1 terrible night. So the first part we're following is set in Greece. The vacation house is a luxurious getaway for a wealthy English family. Windows open to sun and the sea, a sparkling swimming pool, a verdant garden, one hot summer night while the parents and their friends drink wine and amuse themselves. A young woman, the teenage daughter of the Greek caretaker, ventures for a walk on their private beach, and her life will never be the same again. Then we're in London, England 10 years later, and we're following Julia, who is the perfect spouse and mother. Slender, blonde, expensively dressed. She is the classic yummy mummy. Hate that. Cook, organizer, arm candy, and speechwriter for her influential husband. But behind her winning smile is a stifled woman trapped in a gilded cage, stricken with anxiety and perfectionism. When Julia meets Laurel, a therapist who promises to help her find fulfillment, Julia opens herself up to the hope of a different future. Good for you, Julia. What happened in Greece all those years ago that binds these 2 women together? And will uncovering the truth destroy everything or set them free? It says it's a breathtaking tale of betrayal, family, and secrets from the past, and this crackling novel of psychological suspense. And this one is 288 pages, and again, it comes out December 26th. And that is it. Those are all of the anticipated books for Q4, the rest of 2023 that I'm looking forward to. There was only that one little sci-fi in there, that Naomi Alderman, and the rest are thriller and horror, which is, typically what I like to read. If you're watching this, probably what you like to read as well. But yeah, I appreciate you all so much. Let me know in the comments below if there is anything that I missed that you are looking forward to that's coming up towards the end of the year, or if I've added anything to your TBR as well by going through these with you. And that's it. Don't forget that life is short, so read Riley. Cheers and goodbye.